I'm Ben McGrath, staff writer at The New Yorker, and this week I wrote about the X Games, ESPN's action sports spectacle, which are now in their 20th year. This year the X Games were held in Austin for the first time, and the kind of centerpiece of the festival was this enormous ski jump-like structure called the Mega Ramp. The headlining events on Friday and Saturday night of the X Games are the so-called big air competitions for skateboarders and BMX riders. The ramp itself is something like 8 stories high, and the skateboarders start 65 feet above where they're eventually going to land. And here you see Tom Shar, a 14-year-old who won gold this year. They go over first what's called a gap jump, and then they go up off a quarter pipe. The big air phrase comes in part because as they come up the quarter pipe, you see there's a digital measuring stick and shows how high, how much air, how big is the air you get. The origin of big air goes back to a BMX rider named Matt Hoffman. Growing up in Oklahoma in the 1980s, he started building kind of homemade style ramps in his backyard, and it was kind of the beginning of a transition in what we now call action sports, sort of in the direction of almost stunt jumps and daredevilry. Matt Hoffman then became friends with Evel Knievel, and you see a kind of Evel Knievel-ish influence here. It was all very homemade. They would build this really long stretch through his yard, and in order to get enough speed to clear the ramp, have his friends tow him on motorcycles. He would hold a rope and then finally let go at the last second and carry up and kind of flare his bike. Fast forward another decade or so, the ramps became a little more stylized, a little more usable. There was a skateboarder named Danny Way who is sort of the architect of the mega ramp that you see today. In 2004, I think the ramp at that point was probably something like 60, 65 feet high, and there was an expectation that it would eventually go to 100, higher and higher and higher. Everything is about getting better and bigger and more insane in a way. Danny Way, for instance, the inventor of the Mega Ramp, also won the first high air competition in 1995, which was the first year of the X Games. At that point, they were just using the standard half pipe, and it was how high can you get above the ramp. From high air, now we've moved to big air. One of the risks that comes with progression, that comes with ever higher, ever farther, is safety and danger. The higher you go, farther you fall. In 2007, skateboarder Jake Brown, who you see, he's got his balance wrong, and the skateboard goes off his feet. It goes one way, he starts going the other way, and now you realize he's 45 feet above the wooden base of the ramp, and it's just a free fall, and it's pretty shocking. You see, he lands, his shoes pop off, and Jake Brown actually managed to walk off, but you get a sense of how frightening this can really be. The X Games have a winter and a summer component like the Olympics, and so you have motorcycles jumping in the summer, you have snowmobiles jumping in the winter. And last year, Caleb Moore, a snowmobiler in his 20s, under-rotated on a flip, and it's one of those awful things where you can kind of see it coming before he feels it. He lands, and then his snowmobile kind of torques over and forks down right on top of his chest. He actually managed to get up and walk off the track, but on his way to the hospital, or I think at the hospital later, he suffered a heart attack. He then suffered some brain damage, and within the next week, he died. And that was the first death directly attributable to X Games competitions. That was last year. But it also kind of made people think, looking back, how remarkable it was in a way that it was only the first. How much higher can you go at a certain point? How much can you progress before you reach the limits of what the body can endure? This year in Austin, the Mega Ramp was, I think, 65 feet above the landing before the quarter pipe. Several years ago, they were talking about how it was going to get to 100, and I think it's maybe no longer so clear that they'll get there.